It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the three new releases for June 9th, 2006. A couple notable movies here. Pixar's latest movie, their first one under the new Disney deal. We also have a remake of The Omen, and also a big screen adaptation of a popular radio show. But before we get to those movies, of course, we have to talk about the biggest new release of the weekend, which is Disney and Pixar's Cars. So yeah, Cars certainly has a very interesting history on a number of different levels. Like I said before, it's the last. It was the last. So technically, it was the last independently produced film by Pixar before they were eventually purchased by Disney. Because keep in mind that they were going to be going somewhere else because Michael Eisner couldn't get a deal done until Bob Iger went to the Shanghai Disneyland opening and realized that the Pixar characters were more popular than the Disney characters in the parades, and that kind of led to the eventual uh, bringing in Pixar into Disney and having John Lasseter essentially taking over the entire animation studio in general, not just Pixar but also Disney as well. But not only that, it was also the first movie from Pixar that was not a big critical hit. Pixar had been on a roll up to this point with the Toy Story movies, Monsters Inc., Finding Nemo, The Incredibles. This was the one where the critical reviews were still positive, but definitely lesser than what most people would have expected, but nevertheless, the film was still a big success in general, and when you watch it, it's kind of hard not to see why. You have a movie that's set in the world populated entirely by anthropomorphic cars and other vehicles, and you have essentially a Doc Hollywood storyline where you have Lightning McQueen, the cool, hip, young racing car who is on his way to this big race out in California, but he gets lost out in the middle of the desert and finds this little small town that's been kind of swept off the map. Kind of gets himself into a sticky situation where he has to help fix the town that he caused in the long run, and of course, chaos and hilarity ensues with a colorful cast of characters, including Larry the Cable Guy as Tow Mater, which this is already a much better movie than the other Larry the Cable Guy movie that came out this year. But I digress. Like I said, Cars was the first little misfire for Pixar creatively. A lot of people saw Cars as essentially being inferior to some of the excellent work they had put out before this, and while the movie isn't god-awful, it did feel like it was a little bit of a disappointment, mainly in the story department. Like I said, it's very much Doc Hollywood, and it feels very cliche-riddle as a film goes. Excuse me. But that's where a lot of the movie really does stumble, is in the story department. There are too many jokes, too, kind of on the level of Shark Tale, where they're just throwing in puns in there and passing them off as jokes. Like you have they go to they have a Tonight Show in there with not Jay Leno but Jay Limo. There's an Arnold Schwarzenegger truck as the governor of California, and there's a lot of car puns all throughout this movie, and yeah, most of them are not very funny. And on top of that, the characters are pretty cliched too. You get the cocky hero who needs to learn his lesson, his sidekick buddy, his mentor with a troubled past, his love interest, his enemy, and a cast of colorful side characters. But to all their credits, the voice actors do carry their roles very well. I thought Owen Wilson worked pretty well as Lightning McQueen. Larry the Cable Guy really is surprisingly good as Mater, which was something that I did not. I don't think anybody really would have expected from him, but he plays that role so well, and it just shows that, hey, the guy's got some chops too. I mean, that Larry the Cable Guy thing is just it's just a routine in general. I mean, the guy's original name is like Dan Whitney. Like he's he plays strictly a character for the most part. Paul Newman I thought was very good as Doc Hudson. Bonnie Hunt I think works very well as Sally. Michael Keaton has a fun villain role as Chick Hicks. You got Richard Petty showing up as the King, Tony Shalhoub, Cheech Marin, George Carlin, Jennifer Lewis. I mean, there's a really, really good cast involved in here. The animation can be really good too. The landscapes and how they capture the spirit of the old Route 66 are very impressive to look at. The opening race is nicely animated too, as well as the final race. Even the way that the King gets banged up towards the end is pretty nicely done from an animation standpoint, and especially when you consider how Cars 3 literally sold itself as a movie where Lightning McQueen was literally going to get fucked up so badly that he looked like he was going to die at that point. This movie is much more darker and more strict and more intense than that trailer was, because that trailer pretty much lies to you on what actually happens in the movie. And going back to that, as much as the story is very predictable and cliche, it does have those heartfelt moments that aren't forced or too overly cliched enough to still manage to get an impact from you, the viewing audience. Like the bit at the end, like I said before, with the guy with the the king who gets banged up because of Chick Hicks, and there's a part where Lightning McQueen could have easily won the race, and he just says, I gotta go help this guy out, and so he's the one that's literally pulling the king over, and the king's just like, "What are you doing? You just cost is what are you doing?" He's just like, the king should deserve to finish this last race, and he's just like, "You gave up the piston cup for this," and he's just like, an old car once told me that it's just a cup, basically, and of course he's talking about Paul Newman. Moments like that do carry the movie to a level I would say it's not a bad movie. It's actually a very enjoyable film. And yeah, even the music itself is not too bad. The score by Randy Newman is still very good. And as much as I hate country music, why did I say it like that? Country music. I did like the Rascal Flatts cover version of Life is a Highway. I think overall, it's a competently made movie. It's got nice animation, a good voice cast, solid music. Its stories and jokes just need to be written better overall. But it is still their first real movie misfire, but certainly not one of the worst ones. I mean, we haven't even gotten to the worst of the worst from this company. And wait till we get to Cars 2. I mean, that's where the train really starts to go off the cliff at that point. But I thought the first Cars movie was pretty good. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, which is the remake of The Omen.
Omen, rated R, Tuesday, 6/6/06.
And there's the reason why this movie got made, because it just happens to be June 6, 2006. 666, get it? And, of course, it's got to be released on a Tuesday. I'm willing to bet $1 million that that's the reason why this movie got made, so they could put a Omen remake out on that day in particular. And essentially, you've got pretty much the same thing as the original 76 movie. When the Vatican Observatory priest sees a comet, the church is sure that it confirms the eve of Armageddon. Meanwhile, the U.S. president's godson, Robert Thorne, played by Liev Schreiber, is informed in the maternity ward in Rome by Father Spoleto that his wife Catherine has just lost her baby and will not be able to get pregnant again. Spoleto suggests to Robert that another newborn child whose mother has died could be the substitute for his son, and Robert accepts the child and names him Damien. Robert is promoted to ambassador in London after a tragic accident. When Damien's nanny commits suicide during his birthday party, a substitute, Miss Baylock, played by Mia Farrow, comes to work and live with the family. Throughout the years, Catherine realizes that Damien is evil, while Robert is contacted by Father Brennan, played by Pete Postlethwaite, who tells him that Damien is the son of the devil. When the priest dies in a bizarre accident, photographer Keith Jennings, played by David Thewlis, shows evidence to Robert that the boy is the Antichrist. They travel to the town of Megiddo to learn how the boy can be stopped. And like I said, it's literally note for note the original Omen. I mean, there's nothing different about it per se. It's just a new story made for a modern generation, and it's not that good of a movie. Like, here's a little thing. Like, here's something you should probably take into consideration. Like, we just had the first Omen come out not too long ago, earlier this year. That movie is a better way of bringing the Omen franchise back than anything that this pile of garbage was trying to do. I mean, this is just a lazy film. I mean, this is a film that it's just a copy and paste of the original film, replace it with newer actors, and just do the same thing you did before, except we got to make it PG-13, so we don't. Actually, this wasn't PG-13. I thought it was, but no, it's rated R. I don't think they could have gotten away with a PG-13 rating for this, but yeah, it just doesn't work, man. It's just a film that is so just a copy and paste of the original. Bring in some newer stars, update the special effects, add in more jump scares. You pretty much have the movie right there, and it's just not a very good movie, man. It's a film that literally was made because the date was coming up for 6/6/06, and they said, I've got a great idea over at Fox. And again, this is the Tom Rothman era, and Tom Rothman, of course, made a lot of bad decisions at Fox in general, but yeah, this definitely is a movie that was only made because of the name recognition. There was nobody involved here that really wanted to make a good movie. They just wanted to make a movie so they can make some quick cha-ching, and that's exactly what the end result is. It's a film that is just so lazily put together. What more can you say, man? It's a bad movie. The Omen just sucks. Avoid it like the plague. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to our last movie, which is A Prairie Home Companion, directed by Robert Altman. So, of course, this is based off of the long-running public radio show of the same name, and it's basically a fictional representation of what's going on behind the scenes of the show. And you've got Garrison Keillor, of course, who's leading the charge of the show, who also was one of the main guys behind the show, the main guy behind the show in general. But you also have a pretty star-studded cast that includes Woody Harrelson, Tommy Lee Jones, Kevin Kline, Lindsay Lohan, Virginia Madsen, John C. Reilly, Maya Rudolph, Meryl Streep, Lily Tomlin, and, of course, you have Robert Altman directing it. And, this is a very weird movie, man. Like, it's weird to make a movie... It's weird to make a movie based off of a Prairie Home Companion, because anyone who's listened to the show knows that it's pretty much the original ASMR. I mean, it's an ASMR radio show where you have Garrison Keillor, who has a low-sounding voice in general, introducing these acts, and there's really nothing too grand or too spectacular about it, but, hey, old people seem to like it in general, but... As far as the film it goes, like, this is a weird one for Robert Altman to make in general. I mean, if you were getting prime Robert Altman, maybe this could work in general, but this is like 2000s Robert Altman. And yeah, he did Gosford Park, but it's a lot of his stuff coming from the later half of his career really was not that strong overall. This one's definitely kind of a mixed bag movie. It's not a bad film per se, but it's definitely a film that just feels like it's so lost in what it was trying to accomplish here. Like, it wants to be a lighter version of something we had more recently, like Saturday Night, which I thought did a very good job of showing the hell that it took to make Saturday Night Live, the first episode in general. I thought that was a very good film. And this movie kind of feels similar to that, except it's a lighter tone. There really isn't a lot of behind-the-scenes controversies going on around here. And I think that kind of hurts the movie in the long run, because it really doesn't feel like you're getting the full grasp of what was the point of this movie's existence. It feels like there's so much lost in this film in general, what they were trying to do here. It's not a bad movie per se, but just not a very good one overall. It's just kind of a mixed bag film, so... Yeah, I didn't like it that much, but hey, it's got an audience to it. It's a Robert Altman movie. He usually doesn't make a lot of bad movies, but this is just one of those ones where it's just like, you definitely felt like you wanted to see more from him in general. And I just didn't see it here, unfortunately. So, next review on Prairie Home Companion. And so, on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We'll head into the middle of June with 4 movies, including the director of Napoleon Dynamite, his follow-up film, with Jack Black starring in it, Nacho Libre. We also have the 3rd installment of the Fast and Furious movies, which does not have anybody from the previous movies, The Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift. Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves starring in the romantic drama The Lake House, and the sequel that I know everybody's been waiting for, Garfield: A Tale of Two Kitties. I'll leave you that blank space there so you can be surprised that we're going to talk about it. But we will delve into all 4 of those movies. That'll be coming up on tomorrow's show. But until then, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification button, because we post new videos every day, and this way you get updates on when new videos come out. Now, with all that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.